One of the major themes in the study of biblical prophecy is that of the mark of the beast. Here at Prophecy in the News, we are watching continually as world events are moving in that direction. On today's Prophecy in the News, we're going to be discussing the new United States currency. Gary Stearman is here to discuss this incredible turn of events.
And J.R., let's set the theme of today's broadcast by reading Revelation 13, 16, and 17, because we're going to be talking about money. And really, money is control. The individual who controls the money controls politics, controls everything. And we have here in the 16th verse of Revelation 13, and he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save that he had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. So, J.R., when we're talking about money, we're really talking about political control. That's the basis. Of course, it enables you to buy and sell, but at what rate? At what rate of exchange? For example, international monetary exchange is big business. International currency is being debated right now in Europe, the European Union. The idea of tracking currency through ports of call and following individuals who are carrying large sums of money. It all smacks of control.
And you know, Gary, back over the centuries, this would not be possible for some world dictator to suddenly arise and demand a mark on the flesh.
Right.
This, people would immediately balk and say, no way. But in our modern age of technology, we are seeing a slow development in that direction, conditioning the minds of people until it is acceptable.
Right.
This is like putting the frog in the pan of water, you know, and if it's hot, he'll jump out. But if it's cold, and then it's slowly, degree by degree, is heated up, he'll never know until his goose is cooked, or until his frog legs are cooked.
The frog is cooked. Well, J.R., the way this works is very easily seen in an article in the USA Today newspaper from May the 10th, 1994. The headline in this little article is "Currency to Get Facelift and Maybe Die Job," and there's a little picture of what a new $100 bill might look like. And it's pictured as having Benjamin Franklin on the far right side of the bill with a blank spot on the far left. The color of the bill is blue, gray, green, and red, kind of a multicolored ink.
Yes.
And the reasons are given for the new money, chiefly that it'll be more difficult to counterfeit. That's the main thrust. Well, now the $100 bill has actually been announced. It'll be out at the end of 1995, and guess what? It doesn't look blue and green and red. It's been refined to look a little bit more like our old money, thereby making it more acceptable. However, it incorporates a number of new features that make it kind of a global currency. It fits in with the other money around the world.
We received a packet of information from the Treasury Department. This is the picture of the new bill. If you'll notice, Benjamin Franklin's picture here is much larger than on previous bills, and he's been moved slightly off-center to allow for a watermark that appears right over on this side of the bill. Now, there are other things in this bill, of course, that are brought over from earlier currency designs. But the important thing I want you to note is this blank space right here, because it corresponds or compares with all the other currencies of all the other nations in the world. And you know, Gary, back several years ago in the 1970s, it was rumored that rainbow money was going to be issued by the United States government.
Yes.
Rainbow money meaning that it would be colorful, much as the currencies of the other nations are colorful. These pastel colors are actually rainbow colors, full color, four-color process money. And at that time, of course, the rumors persisted, but because of grassroots America and the strong opposition to such a thing, when they finally decided that they were going to issue a currency, which was nearly 20 years later, they decided to go with the greenback. But at that time, we did say that there would one day be a blank space on that currency. Of course, when the 1991 currency change came out, there was no blank space. And at that time, we predicted someday the currency will continue to be redesigned and will one day sport a blank spot.
And just to show you what we're talking about, I'm holding here a French 20 franc note, and you can see very clearly and easily the blank spot on the side of the bill here. This happens to be a 500 yen Japanese note with a blank spot, and these blank spots also are watermarked with the face of the main personality that's featured on the bill. Guess what? Our new $100 bill is going to be watermarked and will have a blank area on the right-hand side of the bill.
Incredible, isn't it? Which means that the people who designed those currencies, be they France or China or America, they're all designed by the same designers. I wouldn't doubt what they're designed in the same building and printed on similar presses. Whether they are printed on the same presses or not, we don't know. We do know that some foreign currencies are printed right here in the United States and are shipped to those various countries. So the Federal Reserve banks are actually associated with an international banking cartel that controls all of the money of the world. We have a book here called The Art of Paper Currency, which has the currency designs of all the countries in the world. This one in particular is Iran, and if you'll notice, please, you'll see the blank spots on the various denominations of the currency. There's a blank spot there, one there, and you can see these blank spots here. Now these watermarks or blank spots must be for a reason. And we surmised back almost a decade ago, that this watermark could possibly offer a spot where the World Bank could someday come in and just put a little imprint, an overprint there, possibly done by individual banks, not having to put the money through another currency, or maybe the new currency that is printed on that printing press would just add the name of the World Bank here, in which case the 10-pound note would be the same value as the $10 bill, or the 10 francs of France, or the 10 marks of Germany, 10 yen of Japan, and so on. Eventually, I think all of the currencies will note the same value when that final step is taken to make our currency a world currency.
Now, interestingly, the various countries of the world are attempting to unite, to take the European Union. The European Union has been trying to bond itself into United States of Europe. One of the great sticking points, JR, is money. They can't decide what they want to call their money. Should it be called an ECU, a European currency unit? No, the Germans want it to be called a Deutschmark, like the one I'm holding here. The French want it to be called a franc. English want it to be called a pound. And all of these have the blank spot. And I think ultimately the EU, the European Union, will have a combined currency allowing each country to retain its national currency overprinted by a transnational validation, shall we say.
And of course, this could not be done when United States currency did not have a blank spot on one side of the bill. And so we predicted, we didn't prognosticate, we merely made an observation back nearly a decade ago that someday that blank spot would appear on United States currency. You see this note? This is a Russian ruble, 5 ruble note. And so whether it's a communist country or a democracy, they are all financed by the same international banking cartel, and every central bank in every country is owned and controlled by the same people.
JR, in a news release from the Treasury Department, it says, and I'm quoting, the new $100 notes, now this is the Benjamin Franklin note that we've been talking about. First in the series will be ready for circulation in early 1996. The new designs of lower denominations will be introduced later, one at a time, at intervals of approximately 6 to 12 months. And they'll let the old money wear out. We'll have new money. And it looks like perhaps in as little as 3 years, we could have all the new money in circulation. And it will all be designed according to this internationalized style, with the watermark,
yes,
with the blank spot.
Yes, and all this has to be very slow so that the people will accept it, and no one will rise up with a nationalism type interest and throw a monkey wrench into the works. These people are very patient. They are awaiting the day, however things have speeded up somewhat, they are awaiting the day when they can establish their new world order and a one world government and a one world monetary system, which eventually will develop in the middle of the tribulation period as a mark demanded upon the flesh of the right hand or the forehead before people can participate in the marketplace.
And it's fairly easy to make that case. And by the way, let's begin by quoting a famous statement from George Bush. September 11th, 1990, George Bush addressing Congress on the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait. And he said, and I quote, "A new partnership of nations has begun. Out of these troubled times, our fifth objective, a new world order, can emerge. A new era, freer from the threat of terror, stronger in the pursuit of justice, and more secure in the quest for peace." End quote, George Bush. J.R., at this point, I remember the words of Psalm 2, verse 1. Which sort of sets a prophetic theme that runs all the way through the Psalms. It says, "Why do the heathen rage, and the people imagine a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together, saying against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us break their bands asunder and cast away their cords from us."
Yes.
It's the heathen doing the raging here. Why do the heathen rage?
That's the Gentiles.
The Gentiles.
It is not a Jewish conspiracy for world government. It is a Gentile conspiracy for world government. And it's interesting that the Jews have become the whipping boy, the whipping boy, to take the blame for all of this, when in fact it is an international banking cartel conspiracy. Notice when it says they take counsel together, Gary, that's a conspiracy. They are conspiring to establish a world government without God. That's what they did back at the Tower of Babel. Go to now, let us make us a city and a tower and a name, lest we be scattered abroad. And this is what men have desired to do, a utopia without God. And Gary, eventually this utopia that they are planning for will be international communism.
The merchants of Tarshish, the Bible calls them. In Revelation, they're simply referred to as merchants, seafarers, traders. They are the people who get rich and then help each other to remain rich, and in the process they control laws and nations. I believe it was Baron Rothschild who once made the statement to "Give me the control of the nation's money, and I care not who controls its politics," meaning that money talks and people listen. And so when we're talking about money and the manipulation of money, even in the most subtle ways, we're really talking about the manipulation of people.
Yes. Now this new world order is going to be ushered in on a wave of prosperity. These people who own the printing presses can print more money, and they're just printing more money, and up goes the stock markets of the world, and everything looks like it's going to be rosy, but they're going to be caught off guard. They're going to find themselves embroiled in the battle of Gog and Magog as the tribulation period explodes in the faces of all these politicians. And from the ashes of this terrible, what I feel will be a nuclear war, World War III, if you please, then will come the reorganization of the world and the establishment of this money, this world currency, and the mark in the flesh of the hand or the forehead. It
happened once before in the personage of one whom many consider to be the prototype of the Antichrist, Adolf Hitler. He wanted to create a 1,000-year Reich, and he came into power on the wake of a terrible monetary collapse in Europe. Promised to make everything okay. 2 chickens in every pot, a car in every garage, and everybody's going to have a job.
Well, that sounds like something an American president once said, too, doesn't it?
Well, it does, doesn't it?
But the interesting thing about it is This eventual currency will evolve. That is, this one world mark of the beast will evolve out of the efforts of the international banking cartel to create a utopia without God. In James chapter 5, we have the remarkable judgment of the rich men as the tribulation period gets underway. And I can see all of this happening as a result of the battle of Gog and Magog.
Yes. James chapter 5. Go to now, ye rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you, for your riches are corrupted, your garments are moth-eaten, your gold and silver is cankered. In other words, currency has failed. The financial system that you have created has collapsed. Yeah. And by the way, that financial system has created a chaos for the working man, for the middle class. Mm-hmm. It says, behold, the hire of the laborers who have reaped down your fields, which is of you kept back by fraud, crieth. And the cries of them which have reaped are entered into the ears of the Lord of Sabaoth.
Isn't it amazing that the scripture here says that they have heaped treasure together for the last days?
Last days.
These are the last days, and this is a prophecy concerning the last days. You know, Pharaoh had a dream one time. He talked about 7 good years followed by 7 lean years. Mm-hmm. And I think the tribulation period will be preceded by a time of unprecedented prosperity. 7 years of prosperity. And following that, however, disaster will come, and out of the ashes of that disaster, which I feel could be the battle of Gog and Magog, will come a reorganization of the world's monetary system, establishing 10 major economic, political regions of the world, established under a single world government, perhaps the United Nations. And from that will develop this new one world monetary system.
And J.R., one of the opening events in Revelation is Revelation 6:6, the third seal. And I heard a voice in the midst of the 4 beasts say, a measure of wheat for a penny, 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou hurt not the oil and the wine. This is a picture of financial collapse right at the very beginning of the tribulation. And the common man, the man on the street, is the one who's hurt in this. It's a global catastrophe.
Isn't it amazing that Mystery Babylon, this world economic system, has been developing throughout history, ever since the days of the original Tower of Babel? And we have seen the merchants of Tarshish and their global trade develop until today. They have taken over every nation of the world through the method of a central bank, which is supposed to be a public entity, you know, stock in the federal, but the stock is owned and controlled by this international banking cartel.
You know, Jesus, when he first came into his public ministry, cleansed the temple. And we have that in John 2:13 and following. The Jews' Passover was at hand, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem and found in the temple those that sold oxen and sheep and doves and the changers of money sitting. And when he had made a scourge of small cords, drove them all out of the temple, and the sheep and the oxen, and poured out the changers' money, and overthrew the tables, and said unto them that sold doves, take these things hence, make not my Father's house an house of merchandise. This was quite an event, and of course met with great criticism. And they criticized Jesus, and he said to them, destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up. Then said the Jews, 46 years was this temple in the building, wilt thou rear it up in 3 days? You know, J.R., this is a prophecy that has the temple in it.
Yes.
It has money in it.
Money changers.
And the money changers, which I think are a symbolic type of the men we're talking about.
Isn't it interesting that when the King of Kings made his triumphal entry, that's what it was called, into Jerusalem, the first order of business was to overthrow the money changers' tables. And I think the first order of business upon Christ's return will be to do the same thing, to get rid of these money changers.
And on the 3rd day, you know, that could be a prophecy of the 1,000-year day.
Well, with the turn of the century in just a few years, we're not only going to see the turn to the 21st century, but the 3rd millennium as well, the dawning of the 3rd millennial day.
Wow.
Oh my, I tell you, it's exciting to study prophecy and see how things are developing, because as governments get together, their currencies looking alike, you can see that there is indeed a conspiracy of sorts, no matter who it is behind the conspiracy. There is indeed a counseling together, a conspiring together to establish a utopia without God. But oh my, what a surprise they're in for when Jesus returns.